Welcome all of you in today's video lecture on strength of materials. Today whatever you are going to learn, it is just a continuation of lecture 1 on tension, compression and shear. Okay, for uniaxial loading. We have discussed in details that where shear stress will be maximum, where normal stress will be maximum, how things are going to fail. We have seen the failure of wooden post on compressive loading. We have seen how a chalk fails, which is a brittle material due to tensile loading. These things I have explained in my lecture 1. The link of the lecture 1 I will give in the description box of this video. Okay, so I will assume that you have already acquired the knowledge that I have discussed in my lecture 1. Okay, I don't think that if you have not understood or you have not seen or you have not gone through that lecture 1 portion from anywhere, you will be able to understand what today we are going to discuss. So better make your concepts clear beforehand. Okay, so let me give you a quick recapitulation of what are the things that we are going to learn today. We are going to learn basically that how mild steel fails due to uniaxial tensile loading. Okay, mild steel is a low carbon steel. It's a ductile material, you can say. So we will see that how at first the yielding starts with the formation of Leuder's line. These lines you can see, these are not any cracks. Okay, these are not the cracks. These are just stretch marks that is seen on this material. Okay, this is the yielding. You can see the yielding portion between B to C in this curve. Then necking occurs. We will see that how shear stress is maximum in the 45-degree planes. So due to the shear stress is maximum in the 45-degree planes, the yielding will occur through those 45-degree planes. Okay, and as the material yields more and more, this cross-sectional area reduces. Okay, like this. These are your 45-degree planes. Things will get clear when I will explain this thing in detail. So this is the necking. Necking occurs between D and E points. See, in this video lecture I will not discuss this stress strain curve in detail. For this stress strain curve you can watch my video lecture. I have separately discussed and explained about the stress strain curve of mild steel. Okay, I will just take help of this diagram to explain these things. Now see, cup and cone failure. Finally, after the necking, you suppose when the necking was happening, you still went on increasing the tensile load. Then finally at point E, cup and cone failure of the ductile material will take place. We will see these things as the video progresses. Thank you. Welcome to the last part of today's lecture. Now we will understand about the failure of mild steel specimen. That means low carbon steel specimen, which is ductile in nature. How does it fails when uniaxially tensile load is applied on it? I will take help of this diagram to explain things. That's why I have drawn this. In this particular video lecture I will not explain about this diagram particularly. In case you want to know about this, you can study from book or you can watch my lecture on stress strain diagram. Okay, suppose this is the mild steel specimen, suppose you are going to take. Now You are applying tensile load on it. Okay, very good. Suppose the stress that is normal stress or the stress that is induced at the cross section will be nothing but P by A. A is nothing but cross sectional area. You can omit this cross section also. You can, or not cross section, this normal stress also. See, you can simply write sigma equals to P by A, because at cross section there is no chance of tau, because we have seen that tau will be 0 if phi is 0. For cross sectional planes phi is 0. Now what I want to say is that, okay, now we will perform one experiment. In that experiment we will slowly increase the value of P, and we will see that what changes occurs in this specimen. When you raise this graph shows stress and strain. Stress is nothing but P by A, where we will keep the area constant. We will calculate this graph by keeping the initial cross section. See, when you increase the load, this material will be under strain and this cross sectional area will go on reducing. But this is the engineering stress strain curve. Engineering stress strain curve is plotted based on the initial cross section. Okay, so we will increase the values of P, and we are going to plot the values of sigma stress, and this type of curve is obtained. I have drawn it previously. Generally, if you do this experiment in universal testing machine, the machine itself draws this curve. Now see, when you increase the load slowly, initially up to point A, that is the proportionality limit, stress increases linearly with respect to strain. Because you increase the load, the material strains or elongates, and due to that stress is developed in this material, and up to this point this stress increases linearly with strain. Now what happens that when you increase the load even further, a spatial value of sigma is reached. Suppose I am writing it sigma only for time being, which is P by A. Suppose this value of sigma is 200 megapascals. Just an example. Slowly you have raised this P. Sigma has been raised slowly, and now it is 200 megapascal. Now you will observe, this is just an example, okay, you will observe that at this value of sigma, this sigma means this is the stress that is developed at the cross-sectional planes. You take any cross-sectional plane, the stress at this time is 200 megapascals. Now at this 200 megapascals, we will observe very important phenomena, that some stretcher bands, some stretch lines are going to be obtained in this specimen. You will be able to see these visible stretch marks. Now it was seen that it was observed by these lines were observed by Lueder. That's why it is named after him, and it is called as Lueder's line. And he observed that these lines, if you draw a normal like this, normal vector with x-axis, these lines are making angle of 45 degree. Now, with whatever concept that we have learned today, we can see, we can understand, then these lines occurred through planes where shear stress is maximum. Try to understand. There are infinite number of planes lying in this, if you see its crystal structure, there are infinite number of planes at different orientations. But Luder observed that at planes which are at an angle of 45 degree, through that some lines, visible lines started appearing like this. Okay. Is it clear? Now see, if you see tau maximum, it is nothing but, not tau max, tau value, it is nothing but p by 2a into sine 2 phi. If you put phi as 45 degree, then you are going to get p2a. This is the maximum value of tau max. At this instant, when your load was having some value P, and due to that normal stresses are 200 megapascals, if you take any other plane, suppose you are taking one plane like this, it's normal, this is x-axis, suppose this is at an inclination of 60 degree. Here also there is normal stress, here also there is shear stress, but the shear stress at this plane is not the maximum shear. That's why the visible lines has not appeared through these lines. Or the visible lines, that is the Luder's line, has not appeared at an angle of 60 degree through these planes. Is it clear? Now, one more important thing I am telling you. See, at any cross section, suppose, at any cross section, what is your normal stress is maximum definitely. We have seen all through this, and that value is nothing but P by A. Luder did not, when the value, suppose at this instant, for this particular instant, at some value of P, at a cross-sectional plane, the sigma normal is nothing but, it is 200 megapascals. Luder did not observe any line, visible line like this, which is parallel to the cross-section, whose normal is making 0 degree with x-axis. No lines are observed like this. But when stress reached a particular value, I will tell you the significance of that value. When stress reached this particular value, some visible lines were observed at 45 degree planes only. This is very important. This is very, very important. At 45 degree planes only. That means what? The material has started to fail under shear due to relative slipping between two layers. If you want to understand the slipping phenomenon in detail, pick up a material science book, Callister or any other book. Read the slipping phenomenon, slip deformation. Okay. Due to slip deformation, due to slipping between these two planes, what happens is that these lines actually indicates, this Luder's line actually indicates that slipping. Okay. Now, I was telling you repeatedly that sigma value at which this has occurred. Now try to understand. Now let me erase these things. So what we have said, that you were increasing the value of P, and at a particular value of sigma, suppose 200 megapascals, you have observed some lines at 45-degree plane like this. At these planes tau maximum is 100 megapascals, because at these planes tau is maximum, and the maximum value is nothing but P by 2a. From that we can see P by A is sigma, so sigma by 2 is 100 megapascals. So we can, when this line started to occur at plane at an angle of 45 degree, we can easily say that maximum shear stress is responsible for these lines. Maximum shear stress is responsible for this relative slipping between the layers. Is it clear to you or not? This value of sigma is known as the yield strength. Yield strength of the material under tension. This point you can say, just after B, when it crosses the yield strength, then the material, then what happens? Even if you don't increase the strain much, that means even if the material does not undergoes much elongation, try to understand. Sorry, I was trying to say that even if the stress is not induced much more, but the material elongates, you see from B to C the stress has not risen, but the material has elongated. That means the material has just gave up for a certain amount of time, that no, I cannot take this much of stress. Okay, even if the stress is not increased, the material is giving up. This is what happens when the yield strength is crossed. Okay, is it clear to you or not? I hope you got what I was trying to explain to you. Now suppose you don't want this material to yield. Okay, you don't want this material to yield, then what will happen? If the shear stress at any of the 45 degree planes reaches 100 megapascals, then yielding will take place, then relative slipping will definitely occur. So if you do not want this, then keep your yield strength lower than 200 megapascals. That's it. You will be safe. You will be safe. Is it clear to you or not? If you have understood this, you will be able to understand the cup cone deformation of the mild steel also. We have understood that when Luder's line forms, that means it's an indication of yielding phenomena. Okay, it's an indication of yielding phenomena. We have seen that why Luder's line are forming at 45 degree planes, because shear stresses are maximum. Mild steel is weak under shear. So we have understood lot of things regarding that. Now we are into the final section. That means the same mild steel specimen which has just started to yield, you have not stopped your loading. You are just going on increasing your load. You are just going on increasing your tensile load. Now what happens? The relative slip that has started to take place at the 45 degree planes, it will just propagate further and further. Yes or no? Now what will happen? To understand this, you look into these things. We know that tau equals to E by 2a sine 2 phi. Can you tell me that when this expression is going to have maximum value? at phi is equals to 45 degree, at phi is equals to 135 degree, at phi is equals to 225 degree, at phi is equals to 225 plus 90 again. Is it clear? (315 degree). Because at when you put phi equals to 45 degree, it will be sine 90. When sine 90, so at this point you will get your value of tau as p by 2a. In this case 135 degree, so sine 270 is minus 1. In this case you will get your tau as minus p by 2a. It is sine 225 into 2, it's 500, so again sine 500 is 1, so tau equals to p by 2a. These taus you are getting, these are your maximum shear stress. These are tau max values. I hope you are quite able to understand that. And this minus sign indicates just the direction, we will see. And again this one you will get tau 315, you put 630, and you will get your sign as positive. Tau equals to this. Why I have found out these values? See, phi is equals to 45 degree. That means a plane like this, okay, whose normal is making an angle of 45 degree with x-axis. Here shear stress is maximum and positive. Positive means downwards. Then phi is equals to 135 degree. 135 degree will be this plane, because this is the normal you will get. Let me erase this. With respect to x-axis, this is making an angle of 135 degree. Here shear stress is minus of p by 2a. That means this direction, anti-clockwise. That means if there lies a point at the inside this surface, then about this point this shear stress is going to rotate in anti-clockwise direction. That's why negative. And if it rotates in clockwise direction, we treat it as positive. This is the sign convention that I am choosing to explain you. Different books follow different sign conventions, but the end result is same. Next, phi equals to 225 degree. This will be that plane. This will be the normal. This total angle from x-axis to here will be 225. Here again the shear stress is positive. That means it needs to be clockwise. You see, clockwise. Then we have got phi equals to 315 degree. So here shear stress, this is again minus, this will be minus, tau equals to minus p by 2. So can you see that this is again trying to rotate the element in anti-clockwise direction. So these planes, whichever planes I have drawn, with respect to x-axis, one is at a 45 degree, another one 135, 225 and 350. All these are 45 degree planes basically. This plane, if you see with respect to y-axis, this is 45 degree only. Okay. So all of these planes are basically 45 degree planes. Okay. Now, in these 45 degree planes, shear stress is maximum. That's why you have seen that Luder's line starts forming in these 45 degree planes. Okay. In these 45 degree planes, shear stress is maximum. Now, necking phenomenon takes place because of these maximum shear stress that is acting at these 45 degree planes. Suppose You take one plane that is inclined like this. Okay. Is it clear? So we have drawn this one plane like this. There are many planes. There are many 45-degree planes. Yes or no? Similarly, there are many planes which are also inclined with x-axis like this phi. By making this phi the 135 degree like this way. So this just continues. This just continues. So we have described an element which might be like this. You can see this is this is element A and this is also element A. Okay. Is it clear? Now what happens is that all these planes that you are able to see in this figure, all are 45-degree planes. Okay? From any such 45-degree planes, necking will start to form. That means cross section reduces like this. From any such, in this case, the necking has taken place between these 45-degree planes. Okay? Now this depends from which 45-degree plane the necking will start. This depends upon lot of factors like stress concentration, for impurities present in which region. Okay. So in this way the necking has started to form. Necking means the cross section decreases. If you increase the load further, this is the point of necking. This is D, this is E, suppose. Between this D and E, the necking phenomenon occurs. Okay. So this necking will increase. If you still go on increasing the load, the necking will increase. And after a certain, and this will, now when you increase the load further, what will happen? Elongation will definitely take place along with further necking. And finally, when this ductile specimen it will break, it will form a cup and cone fracture. Cup and cone fracture. Okay, so these were your 45-degree planes. Okay. So finally, when this fails, then you will be able to see this appearance. It is really very difficult to understand these topics at the first time, but you go through different sources, different books, you will be able to understand. So cup and cone formation takes place. So this region forms the cone, this region forms the cup. So this is all about our topic of uniaxial loading. After this we will move to biaxial loading. We will learn about principal stress, principal strain, many things. We will again come back to uniaxial loading. We will relate things. Then we will learn about Morse circle. So I hope this video lecture has helped you. Now, one thing, that when this cup and cone formation has already occurred, this single specimen has broken into two parts, you are at this point E, fracture point. Okay, so give your valuable feedbacks. Those feedbacks matters a lot. Thank you very much.